Lots of talk out there about who's in and who will be out in the coming debates. So let's break it down. Let's take a look at the latest state of the Republican primary race. Take a look. According to the average of recent polls, you've got Donald Trump and Ben Carson, the top two frontrunners in a national look. Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, right behind those two. Now, here's a look at how things are shaking out in the first three contests of the election season. For those who say, look, it's all about these early primaries, let's show you what's going on there. Battleground Iowa. Trump and Carson still leading the pack in the Hawkeye state. Cruz, Scott Walker, and Carly Fiorina nipping at their heels in Iowa, though. Let's go to New Hampshire. Trump still in first place, solidly ahead. But here's John Kasich, who's moved into second place in New Hampshire. He's been working very hard to pull up his numbers in that state. He thinks that's his best shot in the early going. Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, Scott Walker in the top five there as well. Take a look at South Carolina. Once again, Trump ahead by quite a bit. Carson in the second spot there, Bush, Walker, and Huckabee right behind them. So here's a look at the bottom five candidates nationally, and right in the center there at 1.3, you have former Texas Governor Rick Perry, who joins us now. Governor, good morning. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, a lot of people look at those numbers and they would, justifiably ask, why are you hanging in there?
Well, the same reason that in 2007, Rudy Giuliani led the polls for an entire year. And, although a really fine man, he wasn't in the hunt by the time that South Carolina finished up. So the key here is that the people are going to go and vote in those early primary states may not be the ones that are being polled today. There's still plenty of time to lay out. I hope this election is going to be about the individual who's got the most experience of running a major economy, the individual who's worn the uniform of this country when it comes to foreign affairs and how we deal with our military. I think that is a real added benefit. So as people really focus and take a look at what really matters for leading this country through what's going to be some challenging economic times, not just for America, but for the entire world, and also foreign policy-wise. I'll put my record up against anyone on the stage or anyone in the race, for that matter. I understand what you're saying. It appears that everybody hangs in there until they figure out the yes or no in the end on Donald Trump. Is that a fair assessment? And if that's true, what's the catalyst? What do you think changes the dynamic? What tosses this chessboard up in the air for Donald Trump? Well, again, this is going to sort itself out when people really focus. As I said, back 8 years ago when that primary was working its way out, the Iowa voter, the South Carolina voter, and the New Hampshire voter, they're going to be the ones that really matter. And if you're not able to stay in the hunt through those first three, then it gets a little bit more challenging for you. And these are the most conservative Republican voters that are going to go vote. They're going to take a look at Mr. Trump's record. They're going to decide whether or not, he's a conservative or not.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Jeb Bush has been going after him for. And you were really the first person in the group to, just go right after him, to call it out for what you saw it as. But a lot of people, I think, were surprised and have been surprised at a number of junctures in this race that Donald Trump has not been knocked off the pedestal at all. So do you think it's smart for Jeb Bush to spend his time and his energy going after him in the way he is? Or do you think it's better to take the high road? What's your assessment, having done both?
I think it's wise to be truthful, to reflect what you believe in. And, I'm a border governor who's had to deal with the issue of the border and securing that border. And I think that's where Mr. Trump, two things. Number one, he rightfully calls out Washington, D.C. for being corrupt and greedy, and where crony capitalism flourishes. That's appropriate. Mm-hmm. But when he talks about immigration, he's deflecting off of the issue that's really important, and that is, I know how to secure the border. And building a 1,933-mile fence, that's like from Key West to Maine. I mean, that's rhetoric.
Yeah. Well, you know what his answer is. His answer is, I can do it.
You have the aviation assets in place.
He's just going to keep answering, I can do it, and Mexico's going to pay for it. We'll see how pressed he gets on it. I just want to just stick with your campaign for 1 minute, because you've had some tough things happen. You lost your Iowa campaign chair. He went to the Donald Trump campaign. You lost your New Hampshire director, who went over to John Kasich. You know, what are you telling your supporters at this point? Because, you know, I'm sure you're on the phone with them about how you hang in there. What's the short-term strategy for holding it together?
Well, we continue to go to those states. I got back from South Carolina, an extraordinary event. I think reported some 10,000 people on the steps of the South Carolina Capitol that we spoke to, a Stand With God rally there. And so, you know, that's a pretty good crowd.
Yep,
so
it is a good crowd.
We're going to be going and showing up and making our pitch. And I know how to keep a small footprint from the standpoint of cost. And I've dealt with these challenges before, whether I was the governor of the state of Texas when we had a $10 billion budget shortfall, and we were able to fill that without raising taxes. And I think that's what Americans are looking for, somebody that's got a record, not rhetoric, who has performed. And again, I'll put my record up of being the chief executive of the 12th largest economy in the world against anyone out there.
Governor, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Martha. So long.